Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Two Foot Attack podcast. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos. We're back again for another week of talking football. Premier League is back, but surprisingly, or not surprisingly, that's not going to be the main story of this podcast. I can tell you that for free. But before we start, I'm going to just the elephant in the room. I need a haircut and a shave, so just want to get that out there. No razor at my mum's house, unfortunately. So I'm gonna have to wait till I get to my dad's to trim it, and I do need a haircut. I just can't bother going. So they're the two elephants in the room out the way. Both will be fixed probably by next week. So there you go. You can if this is too unappealing for you, you know what? I don't blame you. But regardless, we're here again. Welcome back to another episode of the Two Foot Attack podcast. A lot has happened over the past 7 days since I last recorded. It's currently Monday, the 14th of August, and a bunch has happened. The Premier League is back. The Women's World Cup is heading into its crescendo, and the crescendo might be the loudest crescendo this country has seen for a major tournament, and we'll touch on that. We'll touch on that very much so. Some transfer transfer sagas have finished. Some are going through. Some are who knows. And what else? And also, some other things that have happened throughout the football landscape that I think is worth talking about. But before we start, make sure I implore you all to subscribe to the Two Foot Tackle podcast. Subscribe to Two Foot Tackle podcast on YouTube and like it. That's it. Subscribe on YouTube, like it, notification bell so you don't miss out on any episodes or any clips. All the audio platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, as well as all the socials: TikTok and Instagram, Two Foot Tackle Podcast, and 2FTPod on Twitter. All the relevant social links are in the YouTube description, as well as all the audio links. And there's also a link tree bio in both the Twitter and Instagram bios. Linktree link in the Twitter and Instagram bios, where you can check in on all your Two Foot Tackle podcasting needs. All the relevant details are in those links. Let's kick things off, shall we? A lot to speak about, but let's speak about the Matildas. Let's kick things off. Let's speak about the biggest footballing story in this country, the biggest sporting story in this country for a long time. That's the Matildas. The Women's World Cup is heading into its final stanza, and against all odds and to the glee of a lot of people in this country, that final stanza includes Australia within the last four, and the way in which the Matildas have captured the hearts of the nation is it's staggering. It's actually staggering. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. I'm actually still kind of speechless, right? I think it's fair that I start in chronological order. That's a Denmark game. The Denmark game was Monday night, so I had filmed the last week's episode without knowing the result of the Denmark game, and subsequently without knowing the results or the potential result of the quarterfinal should Australia have beaten Denmark, and without knowing the results of that quarterfinal should it have fallen the way that it has. I was nervous. We beat Canada relatively convincingly, 4-0, got through, no dramas. And then the game against Denmark proved to be a game where we just had to get the job done, and we did get the job done. It was pretty convincing without being extremely kind of exceptional. And it gave people a lot of confidence heading into the game against France. But that game against Denmark was really weird because we all felt like something was about to happen. We all felt like something was on the precipice of happening. And we all felt that the country was about to experience sporting history. It was a game where a lot of people expected the Matildas to win, but in Matildas fashion and in Australian football fashion, nothing is never as easy as it is. Nothing is ever as simple or as down the line as we're the favourites, so we're going to win. It's very rarely the case, right? There's always some drama behind it. There's always some kind of extenuating circumstances which makes supporting football, supporting Australia in any international competition the most excruciating thing in the world, because we never do it the easy way. We always make it as hard as humanly possible. Obviously, this game probably bucks that trend a little bit. Caitlin Ford scores inside half an hour. Beautiful counter-attack. Fowler with one of the best balls you're ever going to see. Just a picture-perfect through ball to Caitlin Ford, who takes a touch and scores quite easily through the keeper's legs. And then just with 20 minutes to play, Hayley Raso finds some space at the back post off a pass from Emily Van Egmond, I think it was, and scores 2-0. No dramas. Lovely stuff, right? Kerr comes on, much to the kind of, I want to say dismay, but much to the confusion, considering that she came on, we were already 2-0 up. Like, why would you risk her? Maybe it was to get minutes into her legs. Maybe it was just to get the body ticking over. She comes on, doesn't really have an impact, but had this moment that had hearts in mouths of all Australian football fans, or all Australians around the country, where she slipped and fell and looked like her knee had contorted in 4 different directions. She was fine, got through the game unscathed, and we all moved on to France in the quarterfinals. Saturday afternoon, 5 o'clock, and the country... This is where... Also, just following. So, that game had the Matildas 2-0 victory against Denmark, reached 6.54 million people on Channel 7 and 7 Plus, with an average audience during the game of 3.56 million, making it the number 1 rated show of the year. That doesn't take into account live sites. That doesn't take into account pubs, people watching it together, and also Optus Sport. 4 factors that bump up those numbers incredibly, right? And the reason I want to touch on this is I want to touch on it when I speak about the other point, or the point which I'll expand on with the France game. But the country, in the lead up to the game against France on Saturday afternoon, was one of the most palpable atmospheres. Walking around the city, walking around just the suburbs, just going about your day. You'd flick on the TV, it'd be about the Matildas. You flick on the radio, it's about the Matildas. You check the back page of the paper, Matildas. Social media, the Matildas. You couldn't escape it. And there was this kind of unilateral partisan support behind these girls who, according to some people, haven't been able to cut through in this country. I can tell you right now, even before the France game, everyone knew who the Matildas were. Everyone knows who Caitlin Ford is now. Everyone knows who Hayley Raso is now. Everyone knows who all of those girls are, right? Because they're making history even before the France game. And the way the country was able to unite together, backing the Matildas, obviously, for those who don't know, the footballing landscape in Australia. Obviously, Australians who are listening to this will fully understand, but I'll give context for those who aren't Australian listening to this, or for those who just aren't that initiated. Football in this country has been treated for the longest time like a 3rd-tier sport, not even a 4th-tier sport, right? It's always been footy. So AFL, NRL, Aussie rules, rugby league, rugby union, cricket, basketball, athletics, swimming. Football in this country has been a 3rd-tier sport, a 4th-tier sport for the longest time. And it's not only football, but women's football in particular has been the lowest tier sport for a long time in this country. And those who support it, I don't speak about women's football that much on this podcast because, quite frankly, I don't know. I feel like I would be doing it a disservice by speaking about it when I don't know everything. I'm becoming far more knowledgeable about it now throughout the World Cup, and so I'm speaking about it more. But I don't watch every single A-League women's game. I'm just going to be upfront and honest. I don't watch every single A-League women's game, and I'm not going to come on here and pretend that I know everything, right? When there are far more qualified people who watch the A-League women every single week, who are Dub Zone is an incredible show on the Keep Up YouTube channel, which is basically just Goal Rush, but basically Goal Rush for Optus Sport, but it's like 4 pundits speaking about all the women's games that are on simultaneously over the weekend. It's great. Watch that if you want to adore women's football as much as a lot of people do. Watch that show. You'll learn a lot. But I'm trying to learn more. Right? I'm trying to educate myself, and this World Cup has allowed me to educate myself a lot more. But what I always understood was the circumstances that was the difficulties that women's footballers and women's footballers face in this country, because it's, as a football fan, you don't not know, right? And to see all the scenes around the country, to see a lot of people and to see organisations who have disregarded football in itself get behind the Matildas is really special. And I point to the MCG, right? I point to the MCG. So the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, for those who don't know, is the biggest stadium in the country. For those who aren't Australian, the biggest stadium in the country, and it's not been used at all for any of the Women's World Cup. Part of the reason because of this is because the AFL refused to give it up. So the AFL refused to give it up, and also because it's not really a footballing stadium, right? But to me, what the MCG symbolises is the MCG symbolises everything that... like, the MCG symbolises the antithesis of football in this country. The MCG, for a lot of people, when you relate it to football, reminds them of Iran in '98, which is one of the more traumatic experiences that Australian football has had in a long time. That World Cup qualifier, or '97, I should say. That World Cup qualifier, that was at the G. We lost that. One of the more traumatic, right? But the fact that the MCG kind of symbolises the complete antithesis to what football is in this country, and kind of pushes against it so greatly. Like, the AFL is probably one of the biggest sabotages of football in this country at any chance that they get. And the fact that the MCG is symbolised by the AFL is symbolised in the MCG and immortalised in the MCG. For the MCG to show the Matildas game around the stadium before the game, to allow people to get to the grounds earlier, to open the gates early for people to watch the Matildas, for the Matildas game to be shown in bars and to be shown in screens all across the stadium, and for thousands of people, including myself, thousands of people paying tickets to watch Carlton vs Melbourne at the MCG, abandoning their seats to go to the bars inside the concourse and to watch the Matildas penalty shootout and to watch the back end of that game. It was a not a light bulb moment for me, but it was it told me two things. It told me that football's unmatched. I love AFL, right? I love it. But football is unmatched. It is unmatched in this country. It unites people like nothing else, and it brings out this feeling like nothing else. And it also shows that why can't the two coexist, right? Why can't the two coexist? Because for that night it did coexist. And the roar when Courtney Vine scores that penalty, and the subsequent celebrations in the minutes afterwards at the MCG, the roar when we won was arguably louder than the roar on the final siren when the final siren when Carlton won, right? And for those who know, you know. For those who don't know, it's not really relevant, right? But the roar was loud, put it that way. The game was being played in Brisbane, and and across the country, people were screaming about it and were celebrating it and were just giving everything to it emotionally. Says a lot about what football can do and what these Matildas have been able to do, right? We obviously all know the scenes around the Socceroos back in Qatar. I'm not going to compare them, because in the same way that I'm not going to compare John Aloisi's penalty to Courtney Vine's penalty, they both sit on the same pedestal. They both sit number one. You're not comparing them. And in the same vein, you're not comparing the scenes. As things stands right now, should we go on to win the final, different story, but as things stands right now, I'm not comparing the Matildas scenes and the Socceroos scenes, because I think they're the same. As it stands. But to just see the pure joy and the excitement and the camaraderie around the country for these Matildas is special, and it validates a lot. Like, it validates a lot of things. I'm basically going on a very similar tangent to what I went on when the Socceroos got through the group stage at the World Cup, right? So go back and watch that episode of the pod if you wanna basically hear this just speaking about the Socceroos instead of the Matildas. And also, if you want to see me cry, you can go back to that episode. Although I don't know, I probably won't cry today, but look, I won't be too far off. Like football, I don't even know. I'm still a little bit speechless. The game was on Saturday. It's Monday. I still don't really know how to comprehend it. Right? Still really don't really know how to comprehend it. Like this sport means a lot to a lot of people, and these Matildas probably symbolise everything that a lot of people have been fighting for in this country. So a lot of the Matildas have come from the A-League women's competition. Sam Kerr played for Perth Glory, Hayley Raso, Courtney Vine. Like these players have come from like Mary Fowler, Kai Cooney-Cross, Claire Hunt. These players have come from the A-League women's competition, right? And they're in the 4 best teams in the world. And not only that, is that it validates it validates a lot of what people are fighting for, and that is for the domestic competition in this country to be where it needs to be, and that's one of the better. It's one of the better ones in women's football, and on the men's side needs to be something that people care about and people are engaged with. Even when you look at the Socceroos, a lot of that team that was in Qatar was made in the A-League, right? And the Matildas, not only is it football, but it's women's football in particular, and it's women's sport as well, because as Australia being a conservative country that it is at its core, it's maybe changing these days, but at its core right now, it's still a very conservative country, especially when it comes to sport. Hence why football isn't really given a chance. Hence why women's sport in general, probably barring the Olympics, doesn't really get given a chance. To see the Matildas do what they're doing makes me so proud to be Australian, like so unbelievably proud. And it makes me so proud to be a football fan as well, because I've come on here and I've spouted so much shit about this sport and about this country when it comes to the Socceroos and even the Matildas in the last couple of weeks. But it feels like you're constantly speaking to a brick wall. It feels like you're constantly crying out to a brick wall. There's no response. And you just pray that the results on the pitch validate what everyone, not just me, what everyone is saying and what a lot of people were crying out for. And that game in Brisbane was like, what those girls were able to do is magical, absolutely magical. The drama around that game, obviously, probably even the little storylines, the storyline of Mary Fowler in that game, having 2 chances, 2 probably gilt-edged chances to win the game for Australia. The one in the first half, which was clear on the line, and the one in the second half, which he had piffed right at the keeper. And for her to step up, sudden death penalty, and put a hole in the net at 20 years of age. 20 years old. To do that with the whole nation on you, with the whole nation on your shoulders, being carried by that spot kick is so brave. Like, it is so brave. Like, the stories of Hayley Raso, what she's been through. I mean, the narrative around Sam Kerr. Like, if you had told a lot of people before the start of the tournament Sam Kerr would not start a game up until the semi-finals, you'd think Australia would be knocked out in the group stage. But this squad has fought from underneath, and this squad has fought. And the way the tournament has panned out is eerily similar to the way the Socceroos tournament panned out in Qatar, but also it symbolises everything that football fans and football media people and football pundits and football people have fought for in this country, both on the men's side and the women's side. Probably more specifically the women's side, right? But there's a long way to go. There's still 2 games to go, and why the fuck can't we win it? Like, why can't we win it? England's going to be tough, and Spain or Sweden are going to be even tougher. But why the fuck can't we win it? And yeah, like, they're just the narratives around this squad, like the Claire Hunt story, like not being in the squad 18 months ago, making her debut for the national team 18 months ago. I think it was last February, and for her to step up in this tournament and be one of Australia's better defenders, one of Australia's better players. Says a lot. Ali Carpenter's story, Steph Catley's story, Kai Cooney-Cross's story, who's developed into one of the better midfielders in the world. Katrina Gorry has just been so good throughout the tournament. Mary Fowler's story is obviously one that's been well documented. Same with Hayley Rasos and Caitlin Ford's. Obviously, Sam Kerr's well publicised as well. Mackenzie Arnold's story. I mean, even in that game, if we want to speak about narratives, probably making 2 very good saves throughout the game. One in extra time, one in the first half, I'm pretty sure. And then for her to save the penalty, miss her chance to put herself in the history books. I mean, she already did put herself in the history books, but to put the cherry on top, she missed that chance. Then she saved I think it was the one after the next one, only for it to be called back because she was off her line, then for her to save it again. And then for her to, I think, save one. Oh no, the last one hit the post, but for her to basically be the hero, it says a lot about the mental strength of her, and says a lot about I think the mental fortitude of the squad, and obviously Courtney Vine stepping up, and the feeling around the country. I'm just waffling, I'm just blabbling, and this probably is either going to be a really long episode because I'm going to get through all the rest of the talking points, or I'm just going to stop it at the end of this Matildas talking point. I just need to blabble because we're witnessing history. Like I can't sit here on this football podcast and speak about the Matildas for 15 minutes. I'm doing it. I'll be doing it a disservice. I just want to blabble about it because we're witnessing sporting history, right? And luckily this game is going to come out before the England game. It's going to come out a day before the England game, so this at least has context, right? And this at least is not going to be outdated. But yeah, like I mentioned it before, but regardless of what happens from here, the Matildas have done something that not a lot of sporting teams have been able to do, and it's completely captured the heart of the whole nation. The Socceroos were able to do it, the Matildas were able to do it, or have been able to do it, and I don't think a lot of other national sporting teams have been able to do it. There's something about football. There's something about the group of professional footballers we have in this country right now is special. Like, it's really special. And for a sport that has been on its deathbed for about a decade, maybe not a decade, half a decade, ever since COVID, probably. For a sport that's been on its deathbed, we are witnessing, like, it's something special. And when it comes around, these once in a generation kind of tournaments moments, when they come around, you have to savor them, right? You have to savor them. And you have to live in the moment. You have to be present within the moment, because it's not promised to come around again. And you need to take it as it comes. And like, we obviously also, like, for the Matildas, like, naturally, right? And this probably comes back down to the conservative nature of sport in this country, which I mentioned previously. The conservative nature of football in this country lends itself to to disregarding change as much as possible, right? And the establishment is the establishment. I can go on about what the establishment consists of. What the establishment doesn't consist of is football, and more particularly women's football. We hit the first layer in November with what happened in Qatar. And for the girls to do what they're doing now in their home tournament with so much pressure on them, like I said, makes me so proud to be a football fan, and makes me so proud to be a football fan, and makes me so proud to be Australian. And I don't even think what I'm saying is making any sense. But, like, the fact that I'm still in shock. I'm still speechless. I still really can't comprehend what's happening, because we're literally witnessing history. Like I kind of caught myself in all the celebrations on Saturday night when I was at the footy, and it was quarter time at the footy, and I caught myself in the celebrations of what was happening in Brisbane, and all across the nation. And I was like, this is literally one of the best moments in this country's history. Full stop. And for that to be for one of the best sporting moments, and for one of the best moments in Australia's history, for that to be a football game, but also a women's football game, means a lot to a lot of people. Because, like I said, so many, like for the last half a decade, 25 years, it's been brick wall, brick wall, brick wall, brick wall. And sometimes the door gets open when there's World Cups, Asian Cups, when fucking these Del Piero, like the reason why I said Del Piero, like when things like that happen, when David Villa comes, when Del Piero comes, when Heskey comes, when these, oh my god, it's that guy that you recognise for this sport but not in Australia, when they come, the door gets opened. When Australia hosts an Asian Cup and wins it on home soil, the door gets opened. When Australia does well at the Olympics, or when the Matildas do well at the Olympics, the door gets opened. But I feel like what the Matildas have been able to do this tournament is the door was open to them at the start of the tournament. They grabbed the door, they ripped it off the hinges, and they tore the wall down. And the damn walls burst. This is significant change. What they've been able to do, significant change. Like it transcends just it being a women's football game because of what it symbolises. It symbolises the establishment in this country being kicked in the dick, which is something that hasn't happened in a long time or consistently enough. And it just makes me so proud. Like, it makes me so proud to be Australian and to support football and to support women's football. And yeah, I'm so happy that we finally have role models. Like we have role models now for the next generation. Like, for the next generations of boys and girls, right? For boys and girls, I want to be Hayley Raso, I want to be Caitlin Ford, I want to be Sam Kerr. Even still, I want to be Craig Goodwin, I want to be Matt Leckie, I want to be these people, right? I want to be Harry Sutzer, right? So it works on both sides of things. But dare to dream, I think, is the message overall about this. Dare to dream, because what was the attendance, all the ratings? The viewing figures eclipsed any television broadcast over the last 2 decades. Quarterfinal. Imagine the viewing figures on Wednesday night. Heaven forbid we get the job done. Imagine the viewing figures on Sunday night, when these girls create the best sporting day in this country's history. Full stop. Winning a home World Cup. And for it, yeah, I don't know. I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud of these girls, honestly. Just so many narratives, so many stories behind what they've been able to do. So many, just so much behind it. So much behind it. That has been able to not contrive, has contributed to this vibe, this feeling, this energy around the country that's not going to stop. I'll tell you that for free. It's not going to stop. And it's going to be louder on Wednesday night. And it's going to be more prevalent on Wednesday night. So I guess the final kind of thing, if that makes sense, or the final kind of message, just support these girls. Support these girls on Wednesday night. If you haven't jumped on board, then I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I don't know if you're blind, stupid, or deaf, or whatever, right? And you can't hear the noise. Right? Because if you can't see the atmosphere, if you can't hear the atmosphere, if you can't comprehend the atmosphere, then you're a lost cause. I can't say anything more. If you're not behind them now, if you're not behind them now, then I don't know what to tell you. Because it is sporting history. It is sporting history, and it's not only sporting history, but it's sporting history. It's sporting history created by a group of people who have arguably been one of the more I'm trying to find the right word. One of the more discarded groups of people in this country. When you look at funding, when you look at TV rights, when you look at publicity, women's football is fourth tier, fifth tier, sixth tier in this country. So for a women's World Cup quarter-final game between Australia and France to be the largest television broadcast over the past 2 decades says a lot about the demand, and it says a lot about what these girls have been able to do. You cannot take anything away from them because they're the ones driving this. It's such a likeable squad, such an energetic squad, such a squad that is filled with so many stories, so many narratives, and most importantly, talent. It is stupidly talented. Stupidly talented. Mary Fowler's 20 years old. Sam Kerr's one of the best footballers in the world, if not the best footballer in the world. Definitely the best, probably the best number 9 in the world. Hayley Raso has captured the hearts of the nation. She's so good. Caitlin Ford is so good. Steph Catley is so good. Ellie Carpenter's so good. Katrina Gorry's so good. Cooney Cross, so good. Like I can keep going. And for it to end, I mean, yeah, Courtney Vine's written her name into Australian history. It goes Courtney Vine and John Aloisi. Courtney Vine and John Aloisi are there. Top two of not only Australian football, but of Australian sport and Australian history, full stop. It's John Aloisi and Courtney Vine. Who would have thought that 20 years ago, 25 years ago? It shows the power of football. It shows the power of World Cups. And it can't be replicated in any other sport. And if you want to feel this buzz, but tenfold, get behind the A-League women, because that's where all these girls have come from. Do you want to, in 4 years' time, do you want to see the next Caitlin Ford? Watch the A-League women. Watch that competition. Watch that league. Because a player from that league will be playing in this Matilda squad in 4 years, and she might put her name alongside Vine and Aloisi. And the same goes for the men. And the same goes for the men. Watch the A-League, because in 4 years' time or in 3 years' time, there might be a player in this league who can put his name in the likes of Courtney Vine and John Aloisi. And you can say, I saw him or I saw her before it was cool. And that feeling, that vindication, that validation, when you've backed someone, when you've backed an organisation, when you've backed a team, when you've backed a sport, in the face of criticism, in the face of disgust, and in the face of being ignored, when you finally get that validation, the feeling is unmatched. The feeling is unmatched. So let's turn the narrative from, oh, the Matildas were great, yeah, the Socceroos were great, once every 4 years, World Cup's so good, to how good's the A-League, how good's the A-League women's, how good are these Matildas every single time they play, how good are the Socceroos every single time they play. Because if you didn't believe when the Socceroos were doing it, and if you have to believe now that the Matildas are doing it, that something is changing. These girls are making history, like a genuine changing the course of this country level history. Not just sport, generally. This could be one of the most significant cultural moments in Australia's history. If we can do the unthinkable. Just a thought. But I think that wraps up. I think that concludes my my tangent rant, kind of, you know what I mean. My love letter to the Matildas, because I just get down to a live site, get down to Stadium Australia, get down to a pub, watch it, share it, do everything in your power to get behind these girls, because once again, man, I'm telling you, it's history. It's genuine history. As I change the focus levels on the camera because I feel like this is going to be better. Yeah. Moving on, I think. Moving on. I'm actually going to take a break. That's what I'm going to do. 35 minutes. So I've got a lot to speak about in just under 10 minutes. Or maybe 15 minutes. We'll see how long this podcast goes for. But yeah, there you go. I'll be 2 seconds. Well, no seconds for you. I'm going to take a break, rest my throat, rest the vocal cords, and then we can go again for the second half of this podcast, shall we say. Okay, we're back. Apologies if that last Matildas thing was just me rambling. I don't know if any of that made any semblance of sense. I'm just speaking from the heart. I got no notes. I just literally wrote down on my run sheet the attendance figure stats and just speak on Matildas. So all of that came from not a lot of preparation, just more from the heart. So apologies if that didn't make any sense, but at least it was raw. At least you guys know it was authentic. Anyways, let's move on. The Premier League first weekend is back. We're back. Here we go. Premier League football, the creme de la creme of football in the world is here. And a lot of weird things happened. Of course, kicked off with Man City winning 3-0 over Burnley. So normal business resumed, I guess. Arsenal then beat Forest 2-0, and it was like, okay, we're back. 2-0, 2-1, I should say. Yeah, Forest did get a late goal. Pardon me, but yeah, just not really like anything major happened over this weekend. No upsets. Obviously, Brentford and Tottenham drawing 2-2. Ange's Premier League debut ended in an okay result. 2-2 away at Brentford is not bad. Probably a 40% good result. Brighton winning 4-1 over Luton. Brighton look really good. Brighton looks scary good. Like, scary good. I really... Yeah, Brighton looks scary good, hey. Maybe I've had underestimated them. And I'll tell you who else looks scary good. Newcastle looks scary good. They beat Villa 5-1 at home. I know Villa didn't really have any of their new signings starting. Like three of their... I know Diego Carlos isn't really a new signing, but he basically is, considering that he did his ACL. When did he do his ACL? He played 3 games last year. He played 3 games last year. So he essentially is a new signing. Tielemans, Pau Torres, and Diego Carlos basically didn't... I mean, Pau Torres came on in the 31st minute for Mings, but he didn't start the game. Of course, other players didn't start the game that Villa have signed, so they're going to warm into the season. You think Diaby obviously started and got a goal. Alexander Isaac with a brace. My golden boot prediction could be coming true, just quietly. Barnes off the bench with a goal and an assist. He's going to be very good for them. I rate Harvey Barnes highly. I think coming in off that left-hand side, I should say. Coming off that left-hand side, I think he can be a very, very valuable asset for them. Cutting in. He has the ability to cut in, can also drift out wide and really hug the touchline. I think he's quite versatile. Probably doesn't have the pace of someone like a St. Maximin, who he's basically replaced, or someone like an Anthony Gordon. Doesn't have the pace, but probably has the technical ability to make up for it. Very good in tight spaces, very good close control, and I think we saw that in both of his scoring involvements. Callum Wilson off the bench scoring, Tonali scoring the first of the season inside 10 minutes. Very good from Newcastle. They look really scary, and it's a team that I wouldn't want to be versing. Put it that way. Coming into the season, Sheffield United losing, Palace obviously scoring Odsonne Edouard quite late on, or semi late on, I should say. Fulham winning 1-0 against Everton. That's concerning for Everton. You shouldn't be losing that game to Fulham at home. Their team is so bleak. I'm sorry, their team is so bleak. And what Pickford, Patterson, Keane, Tarkowski, Young, James Garner, obviously signing from Forest and United, Guay, Onana, Iwobi, Doucouré, Maupay. I know they've got players like Danjuma didn't start, so he'll warm into the team, and obviously once DCL comes back, they didn't sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin, did they? No, I'm making that up. I'm right. Yeah, I'm making that up. Yeah. I was just like, yeah, he just injured. Yeah. I wasn't making that up. So yeah, I don't see. Yeah, that's a very poor result for Everton. I know Fulham are good. Everton probably dominated the most part. Had 19 shots to 9, 2.73 expected goals to 1. Leno got man of the match. So, I don't know. Weird. You can't be losing that if you're Everton, though. You can't be losing that if you're Everton. I don't... Yeah, that puts them on the back foot early, because that's one of the games where you just need to win to secure... Like, come the end of the season, we're probably going to be looking at that game and thinking, gee, if they just got a point against Fulham, they'd be in such a better position, or even 3 points, which I probably should have got. Yeah, a lot of weird... I think that could have big ramifications come to the end of the year, but who knows? Obviously, Bournemouth and West Ham drew 1-1. And then Chelsea versus Liverpool drew 1-1 as well. This football club, the Chelsea Football Club, are genuinely going to be the death of me. I stayed up at 1:30. I was very tired. I had work at 9 a.m. the next day, or this morning, I should say, at the time of recording. And I was like, I should really go to bed because I'm really tired and this team is going to cause me pain. And the game started and I was like, oh, we're actually like not bad. We're okay. You know, we're passing the ball. We're doing football. Yeah, Raheem Sterling's not been great. Conor Gallagher's not been great. But, you know, we're playing okay football, you know. Diasi's looking comfortable. Colwell looking comfortable. Jackson looking really good. I was quite optimistic. And then we do this thing sometimes. We did it a lot last year where we just stopped defending. we just stopped defending and we just basically were like, you know what? You know these really fast Liverpool attackers, let's just give them space to run and play through balls and to score goals. So that wasn't very good. Diaz scoring just after 15-minute mark, which was very ideal. And then luckily, Mohamed Salah is too eager for his own good and strays offside 10 minutes later, and we dodge a bullet. And then Diasi scores just after the half an hour mark with the worst kind of goal you're ever going to see. But it counted. And then Chilwell did what Salah did 20 minutes before and was caught offside because he was too eager. Probably more excusable for Chilwell because it's that blood rush to the head moment. Like, oh my God, I'm through on goal. Let me just run straight. Salah, as a striker, you should probably know better to run across your line, hold your line, run across, use that diagonal run rather than running straight towards the goal. But it is what it is. I'm not going to complain. And the second half was dull as batshit. So once again, not really a whole lot of lot of surprises there. Liverpool's team is so unbelievably attacking. Like Liverpool's team in that game against Chelsea was so attacking. Like they need a 6. They need a 6 big time. Like they desperately need a 6 because you can't play McAllister as your deepest midfielder. Zabolazai isn't a deep midfielder, and what you played Gakpo was like a 8 or a 10. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable in the slightest. Caicedo, I mean, we'll touch on the transfer drama a little bit later on, but it looks like Caicedo's coming to Chelsea. It looks like Lavia is coming to Chelsea as well. They need a 6 quickly. And I'm not even sure Caicedo is a 6. Lavia is more of a 6 than Caicedo, I think. Caicedo plays a little bit more box-to-box, but yeah, they need a 6. Their team is stupidly attacking. They basically played with 8 attackers. Gakpo, McAllister, Zabolazai, all attackers, plus the fullbacks and obviously the front 3. Left Van Dijk and Kanate exposed at times a little bit, especially with those like, I don't know how to describe them. The plays where Chelsea move the ball out wide and then play that 1-2 bang switch out wide. I feel like we were able to expose them a little bit with our overlapping run with Reece and Chilwell and obviously Sterling drifting out wide, with Chukwuemeka and Gallagher as well pushing forward. But can I just say, how good is Enzo Fernandez, by the way? Enzo Fernandez is a fucking baller. Like, he's a freak, man. Like, he looked so composed, so calm on the ball, even against this manic Liverpool press that was looking to get the ball and get turnovers in high areas all the time. I don't even know if he got dispossessed at all throughout the game. He was exceptional. Like, he was exceptional. He completed the most dribbles throughout the game. He got dispossessed once. Throughout the whole game. He won 5 ground duels, 2 successful dribbles, 90% pass completion rate, 2 key passes. He was unreal. Like, he was unreal. And that is a very good sign for Chelsea. Very good sign. Because 120 million, the expectations on him to perform, and he performed really well. So, big tick for Chelsea. Liverpool just need to balance up their team, I think, because it's far too attacking for my liking. But yeah, that's basically what happened out of the first week of the Premier League. Most impressive, I would say probably we'll go most impressive team and player. I genuinely think the most impressive player was Enzo. I think the most impressive player was Enzo Fernandez. I thought he was very good. From the games that I saw, Isaac was very good in his game. Obviously, Haaland was exceptional, as he always is. Haaland was exceptional, as he always is, right? Who else was pretty good? I thought Matoma was very good for Brighton. That was a game I watched more intently because it was a goal rush. I thought Matoma and Pascal Gross were very good for Brighton. And yeah, Enzo was good. Isaac was really good. The Arsenal game, no one really stood out for me in the Arsenal game. Like, no one really was like, oh, well, they're exceptional. Like, Saka was good, got man of the match, scored his goal, took his goal nicely. Forest were actually okay. Timber was quite good before he got subbed off with an injury, so that's going to be a watch this space for him. Yeah, I don't know. It was a very solid Premier League weekend. Like nothing too out of the ordinary, nothing too extreme. Obviously, the United Wolves game is still to play. I don't know the result at the time of filming, but if I was to go most impressive team, it would have to be Newcastle. Yeah, you beat Villa 5-1 at home opening game week. That's a great result. And I'm gonna go most impressive player, Enzo Fernandez. Most impressive team, Newcastle United. They're probably my most impressive kind of player and team from the first Premier League weekend. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not both of them can keep their performances up. I think Enzo Fernandez is a freak, and Newcastle shocked me because I thought Villa were going to put in a very good fight considering the signings and the reinforcements that they did make. Obviously, none of them played all that much, like I mentioned. Obviously, Pau Torres coming on after half an hour, and I think was it who came on at halftime? Someone came on at halftime for them. Tielemans came on at halftime. Coutinho coming on with later on in the game. So yeah, Newcastle very good, and Enzo was very good as well. So they're probably my most impressive kind of player and teams across the Premier League weekend. Let's move on to other things that happened across the Premier League weekend. Dissent. Now, there were, I don't know how many yellow cards were dished out, but there were a fucking shit ton. If I could, surely FotMob has yellow card, right? Yeah, yellow card. There were at the time of, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. 36 yellow cards, if I'm counting that correctly. So there was Aaron Hickey, Alexis McAllister, Ahmed Dohich from Sheffield United. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. Ben Salame from Sheffield United. Gordon, White, Gumaresh, Chukwuemeka, Mepum, Sanchez, Jota. So that's 11. Douglas Luiz, 12. Emerson, Martinez, Fernandez. That's 15, I think. Visario, Cabore, Madison, Bowen, Timber, Matoma, Tete, Digne, Paqueta, Anderson. That's 25. Cash, Antonio, Jackson, Aina, Skip, Mangala. That's 30. Estepunyan, Tenali, Botman, Trent, Osula, Willian. Yeah. 36 yellow cards in one. Like, there'll probably be around 30 there'll probably be around 40 yellow cards at the end of the first match week. That is stupid. That's stupid. 36 yellow cards in the first match week. I don't know how many of those were for dissent. A lot of those, some of them in the Chelsea-Liverpool game were for dissent, and I think quite a few of them were. It's going to be really interesting to see whether or not players get sent off for dissent, whether or not we see a lot more cumulative bans across the season. And we'll see whether or not players learn, because simply doing that to a referee now, get you a yellow card. Enzo Fernandez got a yellow card because he appealed for a decision, right? Nicholas Jackson got a yellow card for the same thing, both in the Chelsea-Liverpool game, of course. It's a massive change to the Premier League, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it develops in a sense. But yeah, really interesting, really weird. The new scoreboard for the Premier League. I don't know if it's the same in England. I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but for Australia, The new scoreboard sucks. I should probably have a photo of it, but I'm not going to. Seek it out on Twitter. I'll just go new Premier League scoreboard. It looks like something out of the MLS, and I hate it. Like, what happened to the old-fashioned scoreboard? Like, the one last year was so fine. Like, it was good. You know, the box had the teams, had the colours, had the time. The score was really, like, obvious. There was no confusion. It was fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. Why did they have to change it to be some sort of mid-2000s Americanized thing? I don't like it. It's gonna take a lot. It's gonna take a lot to warm to, and I don't know why. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with the first one. I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks like those, like, college. It looks like the Premier League did a competition, like, around colleges in America to design a scoreboard, and they just picked, like, not even the best one. They picked the 36th best, the best one, and that's what it is. Because it just seems really, like, I don't know, man. Ugly for me, anyway. Ugly. But I guess it is what it is. It's going to take a lot of warming to, but I guess, yeah. Ugly for mine. Not a fan. So, yeah, that was a new scoreboard. There's bulk stoppage time now, and I would like to give myself a massive pat on the back and a massive tick, because if anyone wants to go back to the first podcast of the year, where I did 2023 podcast, 2023, what did I do? 2023 year predictions. So, like, year, not season predictions, like for the calendar year 2023 predictions. The fourth prediction on that list was World Cup style stoppage time will become a permanent fixture in the footballing landscape by year's end. I'm not going to say it's a permanent fixture because I don't know what it's like in other leagues, but it's definitely in the Premier League. We saw 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 11 minutes stoppage time. Tick on my book, and I actually like it. The reason I said that was because I think it's a good idea. It's going to eventually see what this stoppage time thing is going to do is that it's going to eventually eradicate time wasting. So what you're going to see is the stoppage time eventually just come back to normal, come back to 4, 5, 6 minutes, because the reason why it was at 11 minutes, 10 minutes, 9 minutes throughout the World Cup, and it's going to be early on in the Premier League, is because teams haven't adjusted. Teams still waste time. So once teams realise that, there's no point in wasting time because they're just going to add it on at the end, they're going to not waste time. The ball's going to be in play longer. So the stoppage time at the end of the game will eventually just go back to it being normal, or relatively normal, where you see 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, right? So, yeah, I don't see... I think it's a good thing for the whole game, personally. I think we're going to see more football. We're going to see less we're going to see less shit, less rolling around, less time wasting. We're going to see more football. And the only downside is that VAR calls and injuries are going to be fully accounted for, which I guess is a good thing, but also in the same vein, like, we're gonna see games where there's going to be 10, 15 minutes stoppage time because there's going to be 2 injuries, there's going to be 2 VAR calls, and it's going to be really long and obnoxious. But I guess at the end of the day, it's fair and it's parity, right? So you can't really complain all that much, in my opinion. So yeah, there you go. That's probably the last talking point I want to speak about when it comes to the Premier League. 3 other things I want to speak about. Obviously, the transfer saga with Caicedo and Lavia is hilarious. I don't even know. Like, Caicedo and Lavia both... So, Caicedo was going to go to Chelsea. He had fully agreed terms with Chelsea. It was going underway. Liverpool were going to sign Lavia, but didn't want to pay 4 extra million for Lavia. And then Liverpool were like, okay, we can't get Lavia, so we're going to spend 120 million on Caicedo. Brighton accepted the offer on behalf of Caicedo. So Caicedo was going to go to Liverpool. And then Caicedo comes out and says, no, I don't want to go to Liverpool. I want to go to Chelsea because I agreed terms with them and I want to go to them. So Liverpool can't sign Caicedo. But then they have to go back to Southampton to get Lavia. But how can Liverpool look Southampton in the face and say, yeah, sorry guys, we don't have 5 more million. Yeah, the budget's a bit tight, when they literally tried to buy Caicedo for 120 million. It's going to be pretty hard to convince Southampton that they don't have the extra funds now. So, and then now it looks like Lavia and Caicedo are both going to go to Chelsea. This is just so bizarre. I think the modern age of transfer rumours and the modern age of transfers have kind of caused this. Do you back Fab or Ornstein? I was having this conversation with a mate last night. I think Fab is far more consistent. Fab is more in terms of Fab will keep tweeting and tweeting and tweeting until it gets right, and he keeps tweeting updates. They do end up being confusing, but eventually they're right. Whereas Ornstein tweets when he's 100% certain. When Ornstein tweets, that to me is, this could be a bold call. I reckon an Ornstein confirmation is probably more certain than a Fabrizo, here we go. Bold call, I know. But I reckon I back Ornstein more than Fabrizo in that case, in my opinion. But could be controversial, but let me know what you guys think. If you back Fabrizo or Ornstein or someone else, or if you just don't give a shit about transfer rumours and just wait for the clubs to announce them, I don't blame you either. Obviously that happens. Kane to Bayern happens. That was very funny. That whole situation was hilarious. Him going up to the referee to argue and then realising he can't speak German is very good. He can't even speak English, so I don't know how that's going to work out for him. The Jack Harrison transfer saga as well, I've got written down. Everyone go on Fabrizio's Twitter and just type in Jack Harrison. Search Jack Harrison. It's the funniest thing you're ever going to read. Jack Harrison was going to go to Everton. Then Villa hijacked the deal. Then he was going to go to Villa. Then Villa realised he was injured for 6 weeks and was like, no, we don't want him. And then Everton were like, okay, we'll have him. But I don't even think the deal was done yet. So that's poor Everton, man. Jack Harrison out for 6 weeks. That's your saving grace. I feel sorry for you. And then finishing things up, the Australian Cup. The Australia Cup is back. I think I mentioned it briefly last week. But yes, Sydney FC beat Central Coast on penalties. Redmayne to the rescue again, and Melbourne City just scraped past Oakley Cannons in the 94th minute. That's heartbreaking for Oakley. That's heartbreaking for Oakley because they had to lead twice in that game and weren't able to see it out, which is heartbreaking for them. But I think that's all for this episode. As we preview the week's actions, obviously the next week the Super Cup is on this week, City vs Sevilla, which is going to be interesting. And then the Premier League is back. I say back. It's not going to disappear. Tottenham versus United is going to be a very interesting game. City versus Newcastle is going to be a very interesting game, and obviously Chelsea versus West Ham. It's going to be good. Palace versus Arsenal, and then we return with hopefully a Matildas World Cup win celebration. I'm going to give my predictions. I'm going to go with Australia. I'm going to go Australia 2, England 0. Mary Fowler and Hayley Razzo goals. And in the final, it's going to be Australia versus Spain. Australia 1, Spain 0. Sam Kerr with her only goal of the tournament comes in the final. That's what I'm going with. I really hope that happens. If it happens, next week is going to be a big pod. It's going to be an hour of me speaking about the Matildas, and that's it. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you all very much for sticking around. If you have, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow on all the socials, all the audio platforms, 5-star reviews, all that good stuff. It would mean the world. See you guys next week. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Share it around all the socials. It would mean the world. So yeah, anything else? No, we're done. So yeah, cheer on the Matildas. Get around them. Get around the girls because they deserve the world. They're creating sporting history. So yeah, go the Matildas. Can't the Tillies. Surely, right? Oh, it would be so good if we got the job done. But see you guys next week. Thank you for sticking around. If you have, see you next week. Goodbye.